And isn't list building fun? You get into Battlescribe or jotting it down on a piece of paper, you have an idea of what you want to achieve secondaries wise because you watched a really great video from a handsome gentleman. And then you get into your first game, and all of a sudden you wish you had things to go and take that objective. Everything's too slow, too much of your army had to start off the board. There are so many things within this game that synergize well, but without experience in tournament play or competitive play, there are some things that fall through the cracks. So here is a guide to help you build a list, going through something that was sent to me by a viewer, and doing our best to repair it and get him tabletop ready. Hello Chassos, welcome to the video, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of list fixing for one of the viewers that contacted me with a very lovely message, has a tournament coming up this weekend and is feeling a little bit of trepidation. Before we get into it, after putting out 2 videos, I have my first sponsor. More about them and the giveaway that we're going to be doing, sponsored by them at the end of the video. Alright, so looking at the list, we have Onvar sitting in the first HQ slot. Absolutely nothing wrong with Onvar. A great model for 100 points, 20 more than a standard ethereal. You save a CP because you do not take an ethereal without taking the humble stave. Onvar innately casts multiple times and also casts on 2s. Even though it doesn't stop me from rolling CP regen with a 1 coming up every single time. If you've got the points to spare for Onvar, he is a great model. Commander in Cold Star, he is going for the precision of the Hunter and the advanced burst cannon build that you can go on them. So he has got double burst cannon with one of them being replaced by the prototype, high output burst cannon and a plasma rifle, and then has the solid image projection unit. Now, I was actually running this before it was cool, because turning a failed save to damage 0 is really great if they don't have incidental shooting. A 4-up invulnerable save innately built into it means that you don't have to sacrifice one of your coveted weapons slots on a precision of the Hunter model. And then he's also got 2 marker drones following them around. And I actually really agree with this, because even if you're trying to out of line of sight your Cold Star commander, you can just put your marker drones strung out in coherency, able to see things and able to mark things up without any retaliation whatsoever. And then you also have some very prime targets for towards the end of the game if you want to use designated tasking to move those marker drones off the Cold Star commander, allow them to go and, well, let's face it, murder everything that they see. They can sit back on your backfield and hold an objective while the rest of your army explodes out onto the board. So very good sort of flex of 20 points there. Long Strike, one of my favorite units to run in the game, not just aesthetically or the lore of the unit, but just because he is so great. Core or Hammerhead units counting as firing with marker lights. Towards the end of the game, you keep Long Strike alive, even when your marker drones get plinked off because of mortal wounds and whatever else. Your Crisis team are just hitting on 3s with everything that they fire, which is really great. He's outfitted, and this would be the first bit of feedback that I will have for this particular player. The smart missile systems are not great on any of our models anymore. The minus to ballistic skill and the additional AP means that this becomes incidental fire that doesn't have a ton of value, especially on a model that doesn't innately re-roll any of its stuff. I have a suggestion for this. I've done up a replacement list that I think that he should use. And so I'll get into that later. Also, the 2 Seeker missiles, if you've got 10 points lying around, they can be okay. Generally speaking, the railgun is going to do a lot of the work that you want it to do. And Seeker missiles can be hit or miss. So for 5 points, it's a, if you've got points, go for it. All right, going into the troop slot. 3 by Kroot Carnivores. This is what I run in my personal list. Just 60 points of pre-game move, obsec, 10 bodies, a little bit of a melee profile, which doesn't always come up, but it can be great. 1 CP to have them heroically intervene 6 inches and gain +1 attack. And if they kill anything, they get a 5-up feel no pain for the rest of the game. Again, doesn't always come up. These guys are designed to die, but can be really, really great. We need things to be able to go out onto the board and take objectives and do whatever else. And with Cao Yun being the prominent tactical philosophy, these guys just have so much value. Nothing more to say about the troop slot. Elites, he's got a crisis unit, each outfitted, looks like it's a 6-man crisis squad, each outfitted with a plasma rifle, 2 Tau flamers, and shield generators, and then supported by 2 Markalites with them. This crisis suit team is not the best use of 440 points. And the reason why is for a few reasons. One, shield generators on every single crisis suit is a little bit of overkill. And it means that you're spending probably an extra 25 more points than you should be on shield generators, where you could be putting things like target locks. You could be putting things like velocity trackers, depending on your local meta. Ignoring cover in an AOC world is so huge. Velocity trackers, if you're in a flyer heavy or bikes heavy or whatever, sorry, I should specify Harlequin bikes or land speeders or Eldari bikes or whatever else. If you're in a fly heavy meta or even in the Tau mirror, velocity trackers can gain a ton of value. Don't forget, if they've got velocity trackers, you do not need to Markalite that unit because you will be getting a +1 anyway. I will have what I suggest as a replacement unit for this. The other reason that I think that this one is a little bit of wasted points, a 6-man unit takes your fire and fade from 1 CP to 2 CP. And that is a big CP sink. Keeping them at that 5-man level means at 1 CP, jumping over a wall and jumping back again means that you protect them, which again plays into the idea that you don't need a ton of shield generators because you protect them for a lot of the turns that you need to. And then by the time you're exposing them, generally speaking, your enemy has lost so much that they just overcommitted in one crisis suit and then everything else on the board just runs the table. Or they bounce off the shield generator that's on them and the crisis suit just sits there looking at them, ready to kill them the next turn. So then in the heavy support slot, we have 2 hammerheads and a riptide. Now, there is some feedback that I've got for these. The smart missile systems on the hammerheads, again, same thing with long strike. SMS lost so much value. The seeker missiles, if you've got the points, but I do have a better idea of what we can put there. The riptide, I would drop the shielded missile drones. And also, you have only put 2 of the support things on there when a riptide can take 3 for free. So I'll show you what I have suggested for that one as well. Sunshark Bomber, fantastic. You've also remembered to put the second missile pod on there, which for anybody that doesn't know, a Sunshark, for whatever reason, comes with 1 missile pod and can take a second for free, but it's not the default. I have no idea why. When you're building your list, make sure you put that second missile pod on because otherwise you are just leaving points on the table. And then in the Supreme Command Attachment slot, we have Shadow Sun, 2 high-energy fusion blasters. I prefer those so much. 24-inch fusion blasters are amazing. But importantly, has not spent the CP for Exemplar of the Cao Yun. The reason why Exemplar of the Cao Yun is so good is because redeploys with our army, and everybody, if you haven't subbed, do it now because I will have the comprehensive Tau deployment guide coming out very, very soon. Redeploys for our army, as well as the pre-game moves on Kroot Hounds and Kroot Carnivores, is why I have been able to get so much success in tournaments. It's why, even by taking Cao Yun, I still alpha strike 80% of my opponents, and the game is won because I find angles that they didn't want me to get and just delete things off the board and they can't contest me. Now, this can be that I castle up on one side with my enemy looking at it that maybe isn't familiar, or, you know, by the end of a 5 or 6 round event, your brain kind of turns to mush a little bit and they're not tracking what you can do to them. Even though you tell them, hey, I've got a pre-game redeploy. For whatever reason, they don't think about it. We're humans. We're fallible. And I have my castle and they look at that and go, okay, that is the seat of their power. I just have to worry about that and I'll deploy around it. And sometimes I will bait my opponents into doing that. I will put a cheeky hammerhead in a place where they're looking at it and they're like, why is that hammerhead sitting out in the open? Not in range of long strike, not in range of any drones for savior protocols. What is he doing? And it'll muck them up. And then if I don't go first, I pull the hammerhead back or I pull it off the board using the strat reserve component of Exemplar of the Kaoyun. Or the hammerhead stays there. He's in a great aggressive position. And I move the crisis suits and all of their supporting models over to where they are and then go out and just shoot whatever it is I want to shoot. So this person also has an extra of 1 Riptide, 20 warriors, which I'm assuming you mean strike team, 10 breaches, and I assume strike team because you mentioned breaches by name afterwards, 30 more Kroots, 6 stealth suits, 15 pathfinders, an enforcer or cold star, dark strider, and a regular ethereal. Now, all of this stuff has a place moving back in. I think the strike team and the breaches, without having devilfish support, are not models that you want to put into your army. Stealth suits can have a place, Kroot can have a place, Pathfinders can have a place. Again, Pathfinders are still kind of hinging on having Devilfish support, which kind of sucks. Enforcer Cold Star, unless you're going to go away from the battalion and go into a patrol, which at the moment you would be starting with, what, 1 CP? You wouldn't be able to purchase one with the stuff that you've made. That probably doesn't have any play, but I would definitely say you can make a list with 2 Riptides, entirely feasible, a regular ethereal if you needed some extra points, and if you go Farside Enclaves, you'd be able to do Enforcer Cold Star, but the theme of your list would have to change. So let me go to a list that I have designed that I think will incorporate what you have and give you the best chance of success, and I'll run you through what your tactical philosophy will be. Kaoyun. Excuse me, sorry. And also what secondaries I believe will work very well for this particular sort of list. So let's do that, shall we? All right, so excellent. We're here in Battle Scribe, and let's go to what I've created for you. I've kept Onvar intact because I genuinely believe that it is a good model, and that if you've got the points for it, you can absolutely put them in. If you really needed like an extra Marker Light, for example, or an extra set of Accelerated Burst Cannons or something like that, you could drop him for the standard Ethereal. You would lose an extra CP. This one that I've designed for you is going to be starting on 2 CP, 2,000 points exactly on the dot. Now, there is also a little bit of leeway, and I'll show you how to do that within Battle Scribe for the Cold Star setup, because I've recommended something slightly different, but I'll do that when I get to it. So, you know, Onvar, Sense of Stone, Zephyr's Grace, Wisdom of the Guides, 3 great abilities. Wisdom of the Guides, in my mind, is absolutely mandatory for any very CP-hungry army, and if you're going to include an Ethereal, you take that and you cast it every single turn. And then you've got a choice between giving your crisis units, because it's core models and core models, -1 to hit, or a 5-up Feel No Pain. If you've still got a ton of drones intact, and they're going to be shooting you with incidental fire or whatever else, or things that have natively bad ballistic skill to start with, -1 to hit can be fantastic, because the 5-up Feel No Pain requires core models in the unit. Drones do not benefit from the 5-up Feel No Pain. But this doesn't specify core models. That unit, -1 to hit. Fantastic. So that's a judgment call that you make during the game. Now down to the Cold Star. Kept Precision of the Hunter intact. I have kept the Solid Image Projection unit intact because depending on the style of lists that you like to play in your own play style, if you've expressed that this is something that you want, I absolutely agree with having something defensive on your Cold Star. It means that when you use your high altitude maneuvers to pop over and maybe just assassinate something that's on the other side of the board, this gives you so much counterplay. If anybody has watched the stream that I went on for Barnyard Wargaming, I used this, and when he tried to kill my Cold Star in return, a fighter just completely whiffed. And the one thing he would have gotten through, which probably would have killed the commander, turned to damage 0, which is just, it tickles me so much. What I have gone for is for the thermoneutronic projector. Now, the reason that I say this is that this list is going to take Kaoyun. The only way that you're not is that your opponent has deployed like an absolute monkey, and you want to score heavily at the start of the game because you're going to control, you know, half or more of the objectives on the board with decisive action. You're going to be aggressive. You're going to shove up. You are just going to delete 1,200 points of his army, turn 1. And that's fine. But you can't really plan to go against bad opponents. You have to plan to go against good opponents. So you'll be taking Cao Yun, and you'll notice the thermoneutronic projector, nothing in its profile says that it automatically hits, which means that this is the only flamer that I know of in the game that you roll a hit roll for. Precision of the Hunter, you re-roll everything, and this commander therefore explodes on 6s, 5s, and 4s. Meaning that this thermoneutronic projector, yes, it's only strength 4, but you're re-rolling all of your wound rolls with -2 damage to can explode. Turn 5, exploding on 4s means that you may get double the number of shots that you actually roll for how many you get. Minimum 3. It's a fantastic bit of kit. If you do not want to take this, I'll show you in a little bit how I do the config. You basically replace this with a burst cannon, and you turn it into the advanced burst cannon. Then you've got to drop 5 points off something else, and I'll get to that when we go into it, and I'll show you both of those lists. I've also outfitted you high output burst cannon, and a plasma rifle. Now, if you're going, double burst cannon on this commander can be great. I don't tend to have high output advanced burst cannon and a normal burst cannon on the same model. I try and look for points elsewhere, but it's not a bad thing to have. And especially because the Cold Star has a target lock built in, you'll be ignoring cover, and burst cannons can put in absolute work. 12 shots with exploding 6s, 5s, and 4s really will, pick up models that this weapon is designed to be fired against. Okay, so moving on from him, Long Strike, I've made some changes here. The first is that I've paid for his Warlord trait through Boldness Victory. Auto-wounding 6s on Crisis Suits is fantastic because it takes you into matchups like Knights, Nids, especially Leviathan Nids with Permanent Transhuman. Re-rolling, and because I've included Shadow Sun, as you did, re-rolling all hits, you will get 6s that will bypass a Knight's T8. So that you would only be wounding on 4s. You will bypass Leviathan Nid's wound roll of only wounding on 4s, regardless of the strength of the weapon. This just hedges your bets a little bit and really gives you some bad luck protection that if you roll incredibly well on the hit roll, and I've done this so many times, you roll well on the hit roll, but absolutely terrible on the wound roll. And because you have full rerolls to hit, but not full rerolls to wound, you want to have that portion of your shooting be the strongest part because of that Chapter Master that we're including. I've taken off the Seeker missiles, and instead of the SMS, I've given him the Accelerator Burst Cannons. These, in my opinion, are fantastic. They're great point and defense stuff. They're 18 inches of 16 shooting because, you have 2 of them. And 16 shots. And it just gives you fantastic point defense shooting or a little bit of volume of fire against models that you're moving long strikeouts and you've got line of sight on, generally within your Cao Yun window or when you're setting up for Cao Yun, and just gives them that little bit of extra punch. Strength 6, AP 1, damage 1 shots, 16 of them, it is nothing to sneeze at. Sometimes I will drop the Accelerator Burst Cannons if I really need the points for something else, but in this particular list, I didn't. I have gone for 4 units of Kroot Carnivores. That gives you plenty of OBSEC. It gives you trading pieces, which is the biggest thing that you were lacking within this list. You had plenty of firepower, but you didn't have the ability to pre-game move out and take objectives. Or have units that can sit behind cover and get ready for counterpunch or taking objectives that you have just cleared off with your Crisis Suits. Now, the Crisis Suit loadout. I've gone for 5. As I was mentioning before, you do not want to increase the cost of your Fire and Fade. I've given them double plasma missile pod. And I should have mentioned this when I was reviewing the Crisis Suits before. One of the reasons that they were kind of a schmozzle is that you had one 30-inch gun and then 2 12-inch guns. There's no real synergy between them. And if you're going to be firing and fading them, you want to be deleting units at range. Now, let's assume that you're on the 6-inch mark because fire and fade is only 6 inches back over a wall or whatever. That gives you an effective threat range of 36 inches with this particular setup. You'll notice the missile pod and the plasma are both 30 inches, and this is why I include it in a lot of my lists. You'll fire generally the plasma rifle first because damage 3 is fantastic against, again, Leviathan in warrior spam. Getting those saves into knights or whatever else. And it also means that if these are the most important shooting, your Tau Set reroll, because you've got Chapter Master rerolls, you won't use it on the hit roll. You will use it for the wound roll. Doing the higher damage stuff first, you fire these first so that you know, like if everything succeeds and you go, okay, cool, I don't need to use my Tau Set reroll, I'll save it for the missile pods. Fantastic. You have a 36-inch threat range with high strength, high AP, high damage weapons. It is, I cannot speak highly enough about these. I've got them supported by 2 shield drones and 2 marker drones. I also have it so that the Shazvra has a shield gen. So you still do have a shield generator in the unit, and I've given a second Crisis Suit one as well. I've given the Shazvra stim injectors because of 4-up feel no pain from basically your enemy shooting phase to the end of the fight phase, because as long as that model is alive, it has the 4-up feel no pain. And then if an Ethereal is given the rest of the unit 5-up feel no pain, once that model dies, your 4-up just turns to a 5-up for everybody else. You've got 2 shield generators, you've got 2 shield drones. That is a lot of protection. That is almost overkill. You could even drop this shield generator, which is how I was achieving the other Cold Star setup with the Advanced Burst Cannon. You drop this shield generator, give him a target lock, and then swap over the Cold Star Commander stuff. And then you've got 4 models firing with ignore, cover, shooting. Now, again, if you're in a very fly-heavy meta, change these to velocity trackers. This unit will delete everything that it looks at. It is a fantastic unit. And this is the one that you put all of your buffs into. You can flex between one of your hammerheads or this unit for count as Markalite from Long Strike. They will have full rerolls, auto wounding 6s, and all the other accoutrements that come with it. Then in the heavy support slot, I've kept the 2 hammerheads that you've got. I have literally just changed over that they have accelerator burst cannons, same as on Long Strike. Then your Riptide, I have given him a multi-tracker, a target lock, and a velocity tracker. He shoots at people in cover, don't care, you don't get your armor bonus. Shoot at a flying unit, cool, I'm hitting on 3s. Shoot at a multi-model unit, 6 or more models, which a lot of these do exist now in the current meta. Sisters, Eldari, Warrior Spam, all this sort of stuff. He gets an additional hit, and this will stack with Cao Yun. Now, obviously, this one maximum 1 per model, so if you're shooting at an 8-man unit, you can only get 8 explosions, which is fine. I've also given him the plasma rifles, because again, 30-inch threat range of high AP, high damage shooting. Very, very good. So that's your Riptide unit. I've got the Sunshark Bomber with the additional missile pod because I was smart enough to remember that there's a second one. Also, another little tip with the Sunshark, the Seeker missiles, it does not have the limit that you can only fire 1 per turn. You can fire both of the Seeker missiles, and I would highly recommend doing it because that Sunshark is going to die. Unless you're against an army like Drukhari and you kill their bikes that are the only things with fly, and they just don't have the shooting after your turn 1 or 2 or whatever to kill this model, empty your Seeker missiles. Because if this model dies with them there, it's leaving damage on the table. Then I've got Shadow Sun with the same weapon outlay that you had, but I gave her Exemplar of the Cao Yun. This is, in my mind, when you're taking Shadow Sun, it is mandatory. If you aren't including Shadow Sun, another commander or ethereal or whatever else needs to take this Warlord trait. Lists that I've seen that don't run Exemplar of the Cao Yun do not have a good time in tournaments. You have 0 bad luck protection or mistake protection in your deployment phase. And if you don't go first and you've deployed anything in a bad position or in an aggressive position, you can't pull them back. If you go first and you castled up and you were super defensive and your opponent deployed like an absolute idiot, giving you plenty of angles, you won't be able to capitalize on it because you were right back in your castle and they will deploy around your castle not being able to see them. So this is the list. 2,000 points, 2 CP, and you will get, even on turn 1, you will start the turn with 4 CP. At absolute worst, you roll a 1, you start with 3, but 3 is plenty. That is a fire and fade, that is a savior protocols, that is a coordinated engagement where you get an extra -1 AP for some of your shooting. And with your commander having 2 30-inch guns, he can sit, look out Surd, but towing around to see something within 30 inches and add his fire to your crisis suits if you really know that you need it, especially against an aggressively deploying Knights player, for example. So, that is the end of the list review. Like I said, if you want to change your Cold Star so that you've got the wound cap ignoring burst cannon, change his over, drop a shield gen from the crisis unit, and just put it on a target locker or velocity tracker, whichever one you're doing. And that is a flex option that you've got for your local meta. All right, and last thing for me to go through with this sort of a list is your secondaries. I would highly recommend taking decisive action into most opponents. Go for a kill secondary into the ones that give up a lot. So if you're going into vehicle heavy list, Knights, any monster heavy list and they give up 15 or more, go for bring it down. If they're a Psyker heavy list and you are very confident you'll be able to kill those Psykers, obviously Thousand Suns and Grey Knights are an easy take. Go for Abhor the Witch. If it's something like Necrons or a very model and wound heavy army, go for No Prisoners, something like that. In the third slot, I would say that a very, very achievable thing. You're not going to be exploding out onto the board with this list. You are going to use your tricks to delete units off and then make your turns potentially 2, but 3, 4, 5 big primary and secondary scoring turns. I would recommend that you could probably go for something like R&D because you can pre-game move your Kroot. And if you go first, run those Kroot into their deployment quarter and just instantly pick off the hardest quarter of the game. A 10-man Kroot unit cannot fail, so you'll just roll over there and do your R&D. Get that, easy 12 points. You could also go for something like Banners if you're very confident, but that one is very matchup dependent. And Aerospace Targeting Relays is another one that could be fantastic. Don't forget Onvar's ability to give a core unit or core sept unit the ability to perform an action and still be able to shoot. So later into the game, you can have a crisis suit that set themselves up, they can see something, and you go, okay, cool. You guys are performing an action. They still blow somebody off the board, but they're still within 6 inches of that aerospace targeting relay. And don't forget, it specifies unit. Drones can be that model that is within 6 inches and the unit is strung out from it. Make sure that you read the wording of your secondaries because there's a lot of little tricks you can get away with to still put down some hurt and be within range of the things that you need to be in range with. If you have any other questions, chuck them in the comments. And yeah, really, really hope that this helps you out. And thank you for asking for this help in the best possible way. Cannot tell you the number of times that people contact me with just an abrasive list, and then you provide them with something and then they just say nothing ever again, and it kind of feels like crap. So for anybody that is wanting to ask for help, especially from some people that are, you know, doing particularly well in the tournament scene or whatever else, and maybe don't have a ton of time, do it in the right way. Let's, as a community, be good to each other. Chassot's Irresistible Force is a Logan, Australia-based local gaming store that has one of the largest range of paints and Games Workshop supplies in Australia. They also carry everything D&D and tabletop and board game that you could possibly want. And as part of sponsoring my channel, they are giving away to one of my lucky Chassots $50 to be used in their store for anything that you could possibly want. In order to be eligible for the giveaway, all you need to do is like the video, be subscribed to my channel, and drop me a comment down below about your favorite thing about tabletop gaming, be it D&D, be it 40k, be it board games. Anything that excites you and makes you want to spend time with friends and family, or randoms, making new friends. Thank you so much to Irresistible Force. If you are local to their area, head on in. They have an enormous amount of tables and terrain and anything you could want to go in and play within the store. They also run regular Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon card games and tournaments. Check them out. Check out their website. There'll be a link down in the description. If you're in that area, they have everything that you could possibly want. And for all of you that are Australian-based, they ship Australia-wide. Thank you so much, Irresistible Force, for taking a chance on a small creator. Okay, everybody, and that is the end of the video. Thank you so much to Irresistible Force for being my first sponsor. And for everybody's knowledge, that giveaway, the $50, is not the only one that they're going to be doing. They have committed to giving me a $50 voucher for my viewers every single month. So if you're not subscribed, hit the button down below so that you know when all of my videos are going live. And also, due to a fair few requests, I am also going to be starting a Patreon. And as part of the Patreon launch with my next video, the definitive Tower Deployment Guide, I am going to also be giving, in conjunction with Irresistible Force, 2 of their premium subscriptions, and there'll be more information about that in the next video, that is worth over $280 each to 2 of my lucky patrons. There will be multiple tiers catered for people that just want to support a small creator and want to contribute a little bit every month, up to people that would like to get premium exclusive services like the list review that you've seen here. Having me pick over a list, let you know all the little ins and outs of it, what's wrong with it, what can be improved, what secondaries to take, how your game plan's going to be. So if you're interested in anything like that and you really want to up your Tau game and get expertise from somebody who is one of the highest ranked Tau players not only in Australia but the world, then make sure you subscribe. Keep an eye out for the next video. And for everybody that has just been pouring so much positivity and comments and messages and everything else, you guys are incredible. Thank you so much to everybody. I can't wait to show you all the things that are coming. And do the internet things. Like, share, subscribe, whatever. Or don't. I'm not your dad. See you in the next one, Chassos.